George, teach George, once again you invite me to share on this sad week when 3 of our friends in our community have passed away. George, on this third part of this series on life and death, allow me to share a familiar passage and let me put in the context of this week's events. Jesus says a man was traveling from Jericho to Jerusalem when he fell among thieves. And then Jesus narrates the story. He says, and then a Levite came by and he asked the question, if I stop to help the wounded man, what will happen to me? The same thieves that are around these mountains that have just beaten and nearly killed this man are going to fall on me and do the same. And he passed away. He walked over to Jerusalem, quick to go to church. And then the Levite came and he saw the wounded man, and he too said, man, if I stop to help the wounded man, what will happen to me? And the Bible says he walked away and hurried towards Jerusalem. And here comes a stranger, a Samaritan who was not even keen to this Jew. And he was on his horse, and he comes through and he sees this man, and he says, thank God. If not for God, it could have been me, beaten by these thugs. But I have been saved. I am safe. And then he asks the question, and the same question that was asked by the Levite and the priest, if I stop to help the wounded man, what will happen to me? But the Samaritan changed the question, and he said, George, he said, if I don't stop to help the wounded man, what will happen to him? Once you change the question, and it's no longer about you and your safety, but it is about the man who is wounded, the man who needs your help. Once you change the question, you are empowered. You become empowered by the God who allowed this circumstance to happen. You become a grace carrier, a blessing deliverer. And the Bible says, as soon as he said, if I don't stop to help the wounded man, what will happen to him? The Bible says the man came out of his cart, came out of his horses, and he went straight, he took out his shirt, and he put his shirts and bandages on this man, and he carried him with his hands, not even worried about what the blood is going to do to him. He carried the wounded man, placed him on his cart, and carried him safely to an inn in Jerusalem. And then he says, listen friends, here is money. If there is extra that is needed, on my way back, I will give you and pay off the account. That is the life of men and women who have been blessed. They receive to pass on. They are conduits of blessings from God, and God continues to give them. The man says, if the account exceeds what I've given you, when I come back, I'll pay. He knew that his God will continue blessing him as he blesses other individuals. I want to be a good Samaritan every day in my life. I want to be a man who is able to receive, to pass on. I want to be a man who says there is death in this family, and I be there to give them the help so that their loved one can be given a respectable send-off. As long as we are conduits, dear friends, as long as we know that God is covering our back, as long as we know that God will see us through, will supply our needs according to his riches and glory, we understand that God's bank's account will never be overdrawn. God does not overdraw anything because God is a capitalist. He says the sheep and the goats and the cattle in the field are mine. The silver and the gold are all mine. We belong to a God who has everything at his disposal. If it is time for him to provide us with health, to provide with resources, with money, whatever we need, he will supply us with all our needs according to his riches and glory. And today, even as we mourn our loved ones, May we find it in our heart to pray and give them a blessing, to pray and let the comforter come from heaven to bring comfort to these families that are bereaved. And then above all, may we be the conduit, the one who receives from God to pass on to the needy. And therefore, as we conclude our three-part cities, I part with you by the blessing of Numbers chapter 6 verse 22. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and give you peace. And you shall place his name in your heart, and you shall be called blessed. God bless.